June 30th, 1999. In a field outside St. Louis, Missouri, someone finds a body. It has been lying among the corn for days. The heat and the field have done their work. The man is barely recognizable. He's eventually identified as Ricky McCormick, 41 years old, a high school dropout who got by on disability checks and the odd shift at a gas station. By the accounts of the people who knew him, Ricky could barely read. He could barely write his own name. But when investigators go through his pockets, they find 2 handwritten notes. And those notes are covered, top to bottom, more than 30 lines in code. Not a scribble, not a grocery list, a dense, structured cipher of letters, numbers, dashes, and brackets that no one standing in that field could make any sense of. The notes go to the FBI, to the same elite unit that once broke the codes of enemy spies. And after years of work, the best code breakers in the country admit something they almost never have to say. They can't read it. So here is the impossible thing. A man who could barely read or write died with a code in his pocket that has defeated the FBI for more than 2 decades, and that code may hold the name of the person who killed him. This is the case of Ricky McCormick's notes, and almost no one, not his family, not the police, not the FBI, can tell you what they say. Ricky McCormick was not a man anyone expected to leave behind a mystery. He lived around the St. Louis area, drifting between addresses, getting by on disability payments and occasional odd jobs, including work at a local gas station. He dropped out of high school. The people close to him described a man who struggled with the most basic reading and writing, who by several accounts could put little more than his own name on paper. He wasn't a spy. He wasn't a cryptographer. He wasn't a man with secrets the world was watching for. And that's exactly what makes the thing in his pocket so hard to explain. Because whatever those 2 notes are, they don't look like the work of a man who couldn't read. Hold that contradiction. It sits at the center of everything that follows. The field where Ricky was found sits in St. Charles County, just outside St. Louis. His body had been left there, exposed, long enough that decomposition set in before anyone noticed him. Investigators quickly came to believe he hadn't died in that field at all. He'd been killed somewhere else, and his body moved, dumped among the corn where it might never have been found. The medical examiner ruled the death a homicide, but the cause of death undetermined. No clear wound, no clear poison, no clear story the body could tell on its own. So the investigators were left with almost nothing. No crime scene, no weapon, no witnesses. Almost nothing, except the 2 pieces of paper folded in his pocket. The notes were handwritten in blue ink on lined notebook paper. Around 30 rows of capital letters, numbers, dashes, and parentheses, broken into little blocks, as if each section meant something on its own. Local police took one look and knew they were out of their depth, so they sent the notes to the people who handled the impossible, the FBI's Cryptanalysis and Racketeering Records Unit, the same kind of unit with a history of breaking enemy ciphers in wartime. Cracking a code, the FBI explains, takes 4 steps. Identify the language, identify the system, find the key, then reconstruct the message. With Ricky's notes, they reached step 2 and stopped. They could tell it wasn't random. The chief of the unit said it plainly. They look at gibberish all the time, meaningless marks on a page, and this was not that. The patterns were there. The structure was there. By every sign, it was a real, solvable code. They just couldn't solve it. For 12 years, those 2 notes sat in an FBI file, unread. Then, in 2011, the FBI did something unusual. They stopped trying to do it alone. They released both notes to the public, put the images online, and asked anyone at all, amateur code breakers, hobbyists, the curious, to take a crack at it. Breaking the code, they said, could reveal where Ricky had been before he died and could lead them to his killer. The response was overwhelming. So many people wrote in with theories that the FBI eventually had to ask the public to stop calling and emailing. And out of all those attempts, from professionals, from obsessives, from ordinary people who just couldn't let it go, nothing. The code held. It still holds today. The FBI still lists it among its top unsolved cases. But the strangest part of this case isn't that no one could crack the code, it's that we don't even agree on what the code is. Here's where the case splits in two. On one side stands the FBI. They're convinced the notes are an encrypted message, a real cipher, written to hide real information, possibly the very information that would explain his death. On the other side stands Ricky's own family. According to them, Ricky had been writing notes like these since he was a boy, page after page of the same symbols, his whole life. They couldn't read them then, they couldn't read them after he died, and some of them believed there was nothing to read at all, that it was simply Ricky's own private way of putting marks on paper, a system that made sense to no one but him. Sit with how strange that is. The most sophisticated codebreakers in the country are certain there's a hidden message. The people who knew him best suspect there was never a message in the first place. So which is it? A cipher hiding a killer's name, or the lifelong private scribble of a man who simply saw the world differently? The theories fall along that fault line. The first is the FBI's hope. The notes are real, and they hold the answer. If Ricky wrote down where he was going, who he was meeting, what he was afraid of, then somewhere in those 30 lines is the path to his killer, waiting for the right reader. The second is quieter and sadder, that the notes are exactly what his family thought, a personal system, meaningful only to Ricky. If that's true, then the FBI has spent decades trying to read a language with a single speaker, who is gone. There would be no key. There never was one. The meaning died with the man. The third looks at his final days. By some accounts, in the weeks before his death, Ricky made a sudden trip to Florida and was seen lingering, almost hiding in hospital waiting rooms, as if he were avoiding someone or waiting for something. Investigators also knew the world he moved through brushed up against drugs and dangerous people. In this version, the notes are tied to whatever got him killed. But the police looked at the people around him, and no one was ever charged, no one ever tied to his death. And there's a fourth, the most unsettling, that Ricky didn't write the notes at all, that someone else did and left them on his body, though that runs straight into his family's memory of a boy who'd been filling pages with these symbols for as long as they could remember. 4 readings, and the code sits there, silent, refusing to confirm any of them. So, this is where Ricky McCormick's notes leave us. A man who could barely read died in a field with 2 pages no one can read. The FBI believes they hold a killer's name and can't unlock them. His family believes they hold nothing at all. If the FBI is right, then the answer to a murder has been sitting in a public file for years, printed, scanned, open to anyone, and we simply cannot see it. And if his family is right, then maybe the saddest possibility is the true one, that there was never a secret to find. Just a man the world mostly overlooked, who spent a lifetime writing in a language that was only ever his, and carried the meaning of it into a cornfield outside St. Louis. Either way, the notes are still out there, still unread, still waiting for someone who can tell the difference. So I want to know what you think. A cipher hiding a killer, or a private language that never meant anything to anyone but Ricky? And if you're the kind of person who can't leave a puzzle alone, the FBI really did put the notes online. They're still asking. Tell me your theory in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more cases the official records simply gave up on, subscribe to the Unsolved Echoes. New case every week. Until next time, stay curious.